Hey, Jen.
Hi, Dana. Hi, everyone.
Welcome to Hypnosis.
And beyond.
Today we have the Mike Mandel on our show. Widely regarded as the world's greatest hypnotist, Mike Mandel has a 50-year career in stage and clinical hypnosis and NLP. He is head trainer and co founder of the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy.
Thanks for being here. This is
Well, of
so
course,
exciting for
Jennifer.
us.
You're my homegirl, of course.
Beautiful. Thank
Awesome. I just recharged myself by holding the brick from Milton Erickson's house for 5 seconds. There we are.
Nice.
Brilliant. That was
We
a
did a
gift.
little
Just
ta-
amazing.
we did a little tapping together before you
Oh,
joined
good.
We
us.
did.
I'm going to do it
Because
too. I'm in the
we
zone.
got
I'm
to,
up
Yeah,
for this. I'm having a
right?
blast.
yeah.
I'm feeling
All
amazing.
right. Yay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, can we just start from
Yeah.
wherever you want to fill us
Everyone.
in for, just so people know who Mike Mandel is if they actually don't know
I'm
him?
speaking from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. And that was initially a joke. My business partner and best friend, Chris Thompson, said we were going to position Toronto as the Hypnotic World Epicenter. And I was drawing 6 people for my trainings when I was working with NLP Canada. And I needed at least 6 to have 2 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 2. Back in the 1990s, Derek Bomber took me on as, when he passed away, just before he passed away, took me on as his gunfighter, hypnosis gunfighter for hire. I said, I love it. So he wanted someone to teach hypnosis for him. And Chris started positioning us that way. And our first training we did together when I left NLP Canada, not the one that's there now, that's changed companies sort of, we got 17 people, including a man who drove in from San Francisco. And I thought, wow, something's working here. And over the years that we've been together, about 12 years now, we've done 270 odd podcasts. And I knew we were doing something right. We had 2 psychiatrists fly in from Singapore to train with me. And they were the first of, or near the beginning, we trained about 6 or 7 psychiatrists in from Australia and France and all over the world. And they like the practical skills that does not involve medicating people. But it's been a long hypnotic journey. It began in the summer of 1965 when I was a 12-year-old boy. And my father took me to a Coles bookstore in Toronto. It was a big chain then, back when there were bookstores in Toronto. And everything's digital. And he said, any book you want, you can have. He was good like that. And the first book I saw was The Key to Hypnotism by Walter B. Gibson. And I want this book. It was like $2 or something, hardcover. And I took it home and I memorized the contents and went out searching for patient number 1. And next door, over the roof of McLean's Animal Clinic on Victoria Park Avenue, was like a deck up there. And there was an apartment. The vet tech lived there with his family upstairs. And his kids, Max and Wayne, were my friends. Wayne was about 10. I think Max was maybe 8. And I said, hey, can I hypnotize you guys? They didn't have a clue what I was talking about. So they said, sure. And I used the induction for difficult subjects because back then I thought everyone might be a difficult subject. Better not take a chance. Do that. Give them the big guns right away. And Max thought it was a big joke and he couldn't stop laughing. And I, of course, knew nothing about congruence or any of these things then. But amazingly, Wayne was a phenomenal hypnotic subject. And he went into a somnambulistic trance. I lifted his hand. It was cataleptic. I didn't know what it was. And I wound up shoving a hat pin, or it might have been a safety pin, through the pad of his finger, right through the flesh, not through the skin, out the other side. And it's bleeding, running down his hand. And his little kid sitting there looking at it completely unconcerned. And I thought, this is amazing. And his parents didn't find it nearly as amazing as I did. So they essentially issued a cease and desist order. But the bug bit, and I kept playing with hypnosis. I was doing magic at the same time, a bunch of other mentalism things as a kid. And because I was a weird kid. I mean, I admit I was. I skipped grade 4, went from 3 to 5, was put in a grade 6, mixed 5-6 class with a psychotic teacher who wanted the grade 5s to work at grade 6 level. So I'd gone from grade 3 to grade 6 now. In fact, it was too much. I was a little boy. I was tiny. I was the smallest kid in the class, terrified of the teacher, and he made my life a living hell. And I went from A plus in everything to bombing out in everything. So I just didn't care. And I failed grade 9, failed grade 11, went to summer school 3 times, wound up in a hippie free school called West Nohant, where you could basically, I was the only Gentile in a Jewish school, and where you could basically teach yourself whatever you wanted. You could just study on your own time, become an autodidact, which is what I did. I just taught myself. But this was pre that with Max and Wayne. So I just kept playing with hypnosis, no idea what I was doing, and then had a breakthrough about 18 years old. I was at a friend's apartment, and I give you the details to verify. They give it the verisimilitude that it was Victoria Park Avenue at Lawrence Avenue, the Greenbrier Apartments. And a friend of mine had a party every Friday night, and I went over for one of these. It's high rise, and there's a bunch of people there. And I was say there's a guy sitting with his guitar, which is true, and he's playing like Stairway to Heaven 50 billion times. Nobody would stop him. We were afraid he'd start on House of the Rising Sun. We'd never get him out of there. And I said, maybe I should hypnotize him. Everyone goes, can you do that? I said, oh yeah, I've been doing it for years. True, but it never worked very well, except Wayne. And they said, well, hypnotize him. And two girls said, I want to be hypnotized. So we take the guitar off the guy. So we've effectively disarmed him now. Start doing an induction. And all three of them are, bam, they're just gone. And I, what? And they slide out of the chair on the floor. And John Cole, the owner of the guy out of the apartment, he said, he said, what happens now? I said, I don't know. It's never worked this well. And the Rolling Stones had just gone through Toronto fairly recently prior to that. And so it was on my mind. And I said, okay, I got an idea. I said, when you awaken, the next person who walks through the apartment door is Mick Jagger. And snapped them out of it. And they're all sitting there with spontaneous amnesia, waiting for it to start. We're going to do the hypnosis. And everyone's going, what? So we waited. It was already about 11 o'clock. And so everybody had already arrived. I thought it was not going to work. But I did not realize that there is no amount of time that can undo a properly set post-hypnotic suggestion. Time is irrelevant. So about 40 minutes later, whatever, the door opens and this guy, Pat, comes in. And Pat knows nothing about what's going on. They all leap up and yell, it's Mick Jagger. They're freaking out. And he's wondering, A, what the hell have they been smoking? And B, where can I get some? So anyway, it was really interesting because I debriefed, snapped them all out of it. And this is what launched me in hypnosis. I said, what do you experience? And the one girl said, well, I knew it was Pat, but, and Pat was from Kingston, Jamaica. He did not look like Mick Jagger by his own admission. She said, I knew it was Pat, but I heard myself saying it was Mick Jagger. So classic hypnotic dissociation. Heard myself saying it. The other girl said, well, he looked like a black guy, but I knew it was really Mick Jagger in disguise. Let's point elaborate disguise.
Yeah.
And the guy said, I don't know what these two are talking about. I saw Mick Jagger. I spoke with him. He was here. So for him, it was a complete experience, the same suggestion. And I immediately realized that there is no one specific response that is 100% correct. Everyone is going to bring their own presuppositions, their own reality tunnels, beliefs, etc., to the table when we do hypnosis. So I began playing with it more and more. And then in November 1974, my friend of mine, probably my best friend at the time, taught me how to play blues guitar. And we went to see the amazing Freskin at Minkler Auditorium in Toronto. And I watched it, that this is freaking brilliant. He did power of suggestion. He was doing hypnosis, but you couldn't call it that because of the Ontario Hypnosis Act back then. It's gone now. It's unenforceable. What the hell's hypnosis? No, nobody can agree on it. And that's a note to any of you doing hypnosis. If you're ever taken before a jury, a judge, whatever, and charged with doing hypnosis, all you have to say is this: Your Honor, I recognize the court and your validity. I'm just wondering, what legal definition of hypnosis are we using in this trial? There isn't one anywhere in the world. It'll fall apart instantly. They'll let you go home because it's communication. It's really good communication, but still communication. So I watched the amazing Kresge, who just died about a week ago, age 89 or something, still performing. And I went home and thought about his stuff. And I said to Steve, who was a booking agent in Toronto for a company called Music Shop, he booked mostly bands. I said, I can replicate almost everything I've seen him do. What? He said, do you want me to get you a gig somewhere? I said, sure. Well, he did. He booked me. And in January 29th, 1975, I was flown on CP Air, Big Orange Jet, to Edmonton, Alberta, and for a program called The Tommy Banks Show. And I was on with some fairly famous people at that time, including Cab Calloway, who was a jazz singer my mom used to go see in England when she was a kid, and John Davidson, all these other people. It was interesting. I mean, we all went out for dinner, and I'm with these people from TV, and I was freaked out. And I did the show. It was so bad that I saw it just 2 years later, only 2 years, and I'm already just cringing watching this. Get it off the reruns. And so I kept going, and Steve started booking me. And I wound up doing around 5,000 hypnosis shows, colleges, universities, corporations, bars, 3 continents, retired almost 7 years ago from the stage. And after 43 years on the road, 5 trips to Australia, worked with an Australian rock star for his issues. I mean, a bunch of cool stuff, hypnotized Alanis Morissette, and had a blast with this. but it was time to quit because I wanted to be home because I'm coming up 72. You know, I don't want to be out all the time. It's fun when you're young, opening for bands and that. And I said the stories I could tell about bands, if I ever put it in a book, would put people in prison. He says jokingly, but not so much. So with me, it started on stage, and I was forced to create a number of rapid induction sets because I didn't know what I was doing. But the advantage of that was I didn't know what the limitations are. And years later, I trained briefly with Dr. Richard Bandler, and he said, act like, didn't say it to me, he said it to the class, he said, act like there are no limitations. Because if you pretend there aren't any, you'll aim really high, and who knows what might happen. He said, you'll bump into them eventually, don't worry about that, but don't set them in advance. And so couple of years into it, I was performing at Georgian College north of Toronto, and they did a hypnosis show, and I had a guy on stage, and I took his name out of his head and threw it away, and he couldn't remember. He was freaked out. So after the show, this tall, stuffy Englishman, and I can say that because I'm not tall, but I am English. And this stuffy Englishman comes up to me. He's got his wife with him and this younger guy, and he said, I'm Ted Heath. You must have heard of me. I said, sorry, I haven't. He said, I'm the best hypnotist in the world. I said, maybe. Right? That's good. He said, what you're doing is wrong. I thought he meant morally wrong. I said, well, how? He said, you cannot take away someone's name without a somnambulistic trance. I said, you just saw me do it. That's beside the point. His limiting belief was you had to create a somnambulistic trance in order to take the name away. He didn't understand Clark Hall 1933, anything that assumes trance causes trance. We can create the phenomena and get the trance by default. So by taking away the name, I was getting the somnambulistic trance automatically. So there were many, many years of learning. And I got into NLP in 1992, became a practitioner, then found out from my other best friend, Michael C. Anthony, brilliant stage hypnotist, that Derek Balmer, Cambridge linguist, was teaching. He was NLP Canada then, smart man. He became my mentor. He was teaching an Ericksonian hypnosis course in Toronto, and Mike was getting this course. And Mike was a newcomer, and he's a great hypnotist. So he was doing John Grinder's new code version of NLP. I did Bandler's. And if you took that course, you got a 6-day Ericksonian hypnosis course thrown in for free. And I thought, bloody hell, there's no way I'm going to let him have this certificate in Ericksonian hypnosis, and I'm not going to fricking have it. So I did their master practitioner course. Derek said, we speak the same language with different dialects. And I love the new code. And so we then got into the Ericksonian stuff in week 2. And the afternoon of day 1, he took me aside and he said, what the hell are you doing in this class? I said, I want the certificate. He said, you can have it now. He said, you don't belong here. He said, you're so far beyond this. I was very kind of him. I'm just giving you history here. Tuesday, he had me co-teaching the class. Wednesday, he had me teaching with him out of the room, just asking me what to teach. And by Friday, he got me to do the testing for him. And that's when he took me aside and he said, will you be my hypnosis gunfighter? I said, yes, I will, but it'll cost you. I want to completely redesign the course from the ground up. He said, with my blessing. So I did. And that became the inchoate form of the architecture of hypnosis, the 5-day training that we do in Toronto twice a year. Young Jennifer here has done that and the master course. And she's an amazing hypnotist because we take ordinary people or psychotherapists, psychiatrists, whatever, and turn them into excellent general practitioners in a week. And then some of them come back and up the game. So eventually with Derek, I did his trainer's course, NLP trainer course, which was 2 years. We met once a month for 2 years and had to go through tons of stuff. And that was the start of it. That was the start of teaching. And then Chris Thompson was one of my Jiu-Jitsu students. And I can't remember which came first. I think the Hypnosis did. He saw me speak at his university, Carleton University. I had a thing back then. It became Brain Software, but back then it was called No Cowheads Seminar because I didn't like people who just follow the crowd and do whatever they're told. I thought I had the button here to show you. It might have gone down. Oh, here it is. No cowheads. It's a cow with a thing through it. And it's right up here with me when I started.
I love it.
Well, and this was like crazy stuff. This was me in the 80s when it was mullet time. So I was not always as you see now. I used to be young. So Chris got this idea, and I was doing these seminars on my own, a weekend thing. He said, he was amazing. Chris is a true genius. He's the genius between Mike Mandel Hypnosis. We've trained about 9,000 people now, online and in person. And Chris is an MBA. He's a mechanical engineer. He was a stock analyst for the Globe and Mail, Canada's national newspaper, and just a brilliant, brilliant guy. And he said, I'm going to quit my job and work with you full time. It's like, thank you, God. So he took this guy who worked all over the place, but was basically known in Southern Ontario. And he said, we're going to become a force to be reckoned with. And he did put Toronto on the map. And that's the greatest joy in my life. You know, I have few needs in life. I'm happy to play guitar and play piano and do jiu-jitsu and drink good whiskey and good wine and hang out with my wife and hang out with Jennifer at her house and husband and friends and family. But for me, what turns me on more than anything is teaching people to replicate excellence. When we turn them loose and they contact us in our group and say, oh, I just heard this guy's had a snake phobia for 10 years. It's paralyzed. And he was handling a snake today and laughing. I mean, that, or like we saw in the last training, the woman who was allergic to oysters and shellfish, and they had inherited an oyster farm in Nova Scotia. And so I cured the oyster. Well, I didn't do it. I retrained her immune system in front of the class. That night, she videoed it. She's eating oysters with zero effect. No, I did not tell her to do that. So don't get on my case. I say, go to your allergist and let them prove it. But she wanted to try it. And it's been an amazing journey, an amazing blessing. And I retired from being a keynote speaker shortly after doing the hypnosis a couple of years later. So it's almost 7 years off stage. And I still, Dana and Jennifer, have dreams that I have to do a show. I had one 3 nights ago. I'm at the vet going, what? There's no sound set up. Oh, we haven't done it yet. Where's the mic stand? I'm saying, how has this happened? Why did I agree to do this? It's like 40 people. No one's paying attention. This way, got my heart pounding. Going, oh, it's just a dream. Thank you, God. I just don't want to be on stage anymore. So this is the perfect thing to hang out with my best friends. People like Jennifer come back as a resource and help the newbies get to do the course again and again and again at higher levels each time, because hypnosis is a never-ending pit of wonderment for me. And to meet with someone and have a conversation with them and see their life transform is amazing. In fact, I was doing a keynote in Boston a few years back, pretty well when we started the academy. And one of my students, his name is Matthias, he's German, lives in Boston. He's an OBGYN. And he said, I told him I'm coming to Boston. So he agreed to pick me up at the hotel. And he said, we'll go out and have some Pinot Noir and I'll show you MIT and Harvard. And we had a blast, hung up that evening, drove around his car. And the thing is, on the way there, I had one of those wonderful life-changing moments. And on the plane next to me was an elderly woman. I say elderly, she was probably my age now, but she was Irish, strong Irish accent, the South, not Northern Ireland, very strong. And she sounded like an Irish Spring commercial or a Lucky Charms commercial. She said, where are you going, young man? So I'm going to Boston like you are. What you doing there? So I'm doing a keynote talk for a company. She said, well, I'm dreading going myself. I'm dreading it. And it turned out her husband had died a couple of years before. And Boston was their favorite place because Massachusetts and Boston are full of Irish immigrants, like the Kennedys. And she said that it was their favorite place in the world. And she wanted to go back to remember him, but she was afraid the grief would come back and devastate her. And I went into hypnosis mode. And I said, it's a funny thing. I remember a story I heard once, and I intersected her and started talking hypnotic language. And she went into trance. She stopped blinking. Her lower lip swelled up and listened to me, just kept nodding. So I nodded in pace with her. I can't remember what the hell I said. And then afterwards, she got up from her seat. And I walked her out so we get her luggage and everything. And she said, you know something, young man? I'm not at all worried about going there now. It's the most marvelous thing. Can I pray for you? I said, of course you can. And she held my hands and prayed. This woman's a devout Catholic, and here I am, a confirmed Protestant Presbyterian elder. And it was just a lovely experience. And I believe she had a great time after that because the trepidation was gone. And she could look at her life and all the wonder and love she'd had with her husband and fire all those anchors again. And that's something I love doing, the indirect stuff that comes out of left field. Anyway, I've talked too much.
Wow. See, you just hypnotize us. But you've covered so much ground there. But one of the questions that I had is, because I always tell people that it doesn't matter what you see online, you've got to experience Mike Mandel doing architecture of hypnosis, because you're bringing in all of the practical education, and then you're mixing it with your entertainment and keeping everybody alert and just leaving you kind of like, I remember at the end of the first one where I just came home and went, oh my gosh, like my life will never be the same because I was hypnotized by you the whole week. So
well, there is that.
Like, you are a rock star in my eyes. So when I see you coming in there, the level of energy that you keep going throughout the whole thing, the more I come back, I notice you're watching the room, you're teaching. How, like, in the behind the scenes, what are you doing to prepare in your life? What are some things that you can give our audience, some tips
I will
on?
tell you. I'll tell you the
Yes,
secret.
please.
Well, it's the preparation is exhausting. I literally take 5 to 7 8-hour days and power read 30 to 50 hypnosis books. And because I've highlighted in them, because they're not, Gutenberg Bible first editions, highlight notes all over them. And you should see my notes. Somebody's stumble, this is crap. I'm scratching. What are you talking about? Like one guy saying, if someone's very religious, you should hypnotize them using King James English. And as thou sitteth there and goeth it, you can't make this stuff up. It's insanity. So I have fun with it. But I do a major prep. I mean, I honestly, because I've eaten, drank, lived, and breathed hypnosis for, well, how long? Yeah, 50 years now this year, 50 years, all the time. I can teach it right now if you needed me to. But my students, because a lot of them have come from far away, we had our first student from mainland China, lots from New Zealand, Australia, India. They deserve Mike at his best. So I make sure the blade is razor sharp when I go to teach. So sometimes somebody will make a comment and I'll remember not only who said it, I'll give them a quote. It'll be not only who said it or who answered that, but what book it was in, and sometimes even the exact page. Like it's that crazy. I have a very bizarre brain. That's why I'm useless at mechanical things. I can't. I work a screwdriver. I'll take my head off with it. My dad was an engineer. He could never figure out why I'd got none of it. I can't swim more than about 50 feet, or I'll probably drown. It's like I've got a lot of weaknesses. But it's like all my dice have been put into hypnosis, or most of them at any rate. So I do prep, like literally 30 to 50 books, all aspects. I'll spend 3 days just on Milton Erickson and Rossi and Stephen Gilligan and all the Ericksonians. And because I'm teaching my neo-Ericksonian approach, I'll spend the rest of the time going to the direct hypnotists like Erickson and, Estabrooks and Ellman and all of these. I mean, Estabrooks, Ellman, and Estelle doing all the anesthesia. Erickson's the first part, but he crosses over because he was pretty direct at times too. And then when I teach, I don't eat. I only eat supper. So I intermittently fast all day, not a speck of food. I'll have 2 cups of coffee. That's it. I've learned not to have maybe a third one in the afternoon. Learn not to do that. I'll drink water. And that keeps my energy level very high because I'm not digesting and I'm burning fat the whole day, which the ketones are great for the brain. It loves it. And then my third secret is I take ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo, let's reverse, but drops. I'll take
I'm
that.
getting on and ordering a case.
What's that?
I said I've just ordered a case now.
Oh yeah, it's great. They actually got an even better one that's not pure ginkgo, but it's ginkgo. I think this is all St. Francis from Western Canada, but it's combined with East Indian Ayurvedic medicine herbs as well, and that keeps my brain sharp. In fact, people didn't know I was taking it at first, but it was just a joke. And I said, any questions? And one guy said, yeah, what are you taking? I want some. So it does help. It increases glucose and oxygen uptake to the brain, which is exactly what we need to think. So I make sure I'm physically fit for it. I blown up into a 190-pound blob many years ago. And now I'm generally in the high 150s, low 160s. That makes a big difference to stay as fit as I can and bring my A game every time. And that, I think, makes a huge difference. Drinking tea now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So,
Ladies.
as far as Dana, do you have any questions for Mike?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
One of my questions is about your lovely cat that you referred to. I'm a cat person too, so
I
I'm
love you
curious.
already.
Do you believe that cats would be hypnotists? I mean, what do you think that's what they're walking around doing?
I think they're
Because
more hypnotic than snakes, for sure. Yeah. Cats are funny, aren't they? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a confirmed a lurophile, lover of cats, and a pluviophile, a lover of rain. And being born in England in April, where in Manchester, where it rains all the time, it's probably my DNA. People say you don't sound English, so I should hear. When I get back with my family, we speak like this all the time. When I was growing up as a young lad, I spoke like this at home with my mum and dad, and then go to school and I'd be Canadian. And if my friends came to my house, which one am I? I don't know who to be. But cats have been a huge part of my life. My mom said my playpen when I was about 2 in Manchester, there were Siamese kittens that would wander in, and she said I'd picked them up by the neck. And she said their eyes would be bugging out, and I go kissing them. She said she'd take them out, and they'd wander back in for more. And ever since I was a kid, I could pick up the most disreputable, scruffy, nasty cat. And they say, "Oh, don't go near Scruffy there. He'll rip your head off. He's got long claws." I say, "I can pick them up." I think I'm a cat whisperer. And you must be too, because there's only two groups of people in the world: cat lovers and everybody else.
Right. We indulge them and let them stick around, you know.
Well, what do they
Uh,
say? Donna, isn't the line something like dogs have owners and cats have staff?
Right. It's so true. It's so true. Well, the other question I have for you is about jujitsu and the
Oh,
role of martial arts in your life and how you
yeah,
found it and
that's cool.
how it
Yeah, in
affects,
fact,
hypnosis, just all of it.
okay. Well, there's my jujitsu tattoo. I think that was my last one, my most recent. That's number 11. I can't say it's the last, but people say, "What does that mean?" And I say, "Reconsider." So I did a bunch of martial arts as a kid. I started with judo and never went very far. I did aikido with Obato Sensei in Toronto. I did still lum kung fu, which is Shaolin kung fu. I did hapkido with Dr. Yo, and then I did hapkido with Dr. In Park. And I never stayed with any of them. I didn't like it. And Shorin karate, bits and pieces. And then I discovered this system from this man, Bill Underwood, which is a British jiu-jitsu system. And Bill became my sensei. When he died in 1986, I was the last trainer in the world in his system. And it almost disappeared. And it's a system, British jiu-jitsu, it's not, we don't wear pajamas, we wear street shoes and street clothes because that's when you fight. You don't put pajamas on to fight and go barefoot. And we wear steel toed boots and carry edged weapons because a blade is really handy in the street. And, it's a different system. It's a military based system. And Bill taught at Camp X east of Toronto, which was where the OSS came before they became the CIA. And Camp X was so secret, the Canadian Prime Minister did not know it existed. And it was created by Winston Churchill and a man, William Stevenson, who they wrote books about, the man who called Intrepid. And they would bring spies over from England and British operatives and teach them silent killing, hand to hand combat, escape and evasion, all of these things. And one of them was a young man by the name of Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond books. And he was billeted on Eglinton Avenue in Toronto, across the street from a church. You can Google, it's been leveled probably to put in condos now. And it was called St. James Bond United Church because it was St. James Church united with Bond Anglican Church, or it might be the other way around. So St. James Bond United Church. And the belief is that Ian Fleming saw this every day when he was coming back from Camp X and used that name for his spy. And so we say this system it's just, if you've got to shut the guy down in 2 seconds, that's it. It's not designed to make friends with people. It's designed to save your life. It can be taught very, very quickly. And it's great. I mean, I also was blessed. I trained with the toughest man in the world at the time, Hickson Gracie. He came and did seminars in Toronto, and I watched 2 days, and I just watched. And I realized suddenly on the second day, anybody who asked him a question, or all these multiple martial artists, he called them on the mat and would demo on them. And so I'm rolling on the mat with the toughest guy in the world, thinking this is freaking amazing. So I got the picture with Hickson, and just a blast. But we went back. I took it to England. We took Britain's system back. Nobody was teaching it. And my business partner at the time, he and I went and we were in the London Times. We taught martial arts. We taught soldiers, and people loved it. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. And then the Ontario Provincial Police had 50 hand-to-hand combat instructors, and they wanted to improve their skill sets. So I'm the guy they hired to teach them. And it was amazing. We get the biggest, 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. We get the biggest guy, biggest cop in the room, and make him scream and cry and slam him through the mat. and everybody pays attention for the rest of the day. It's just great. So at the place, we have a dojo out in the West End. I'm not teaching anymore. It's just too far to go. It's 45 minutes each end, each direction. But my protege, Adam Sutherland is the toughest guy I've ever met. He runs the school now. It's his Toronto School of British Jiu-Jitsu. The other side of the mat is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu group. And the guy said, "Will you come and roll on the mat with us?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "If I was a boxer and asked you to come in the boxing ring and you have to box, would you do it?" He said, "No." I said, "I'll do my system, but I can stab you if I want. I carry a freaking knife." Okay. I said, I wear steel toed boots. I'll kneecap you. If I can't use my system, why would I use your system to demo? You're going to say you won because I'm rolling around the mat. But if you come on the mat with me and I'm not going to drop our methods to make them your methods. But he was good. He said, "Yeah, you've got a good point there. I don't want to face a blade." But it's great. I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a fabulous, fabulous protective martial art. There's some I'm not so crazy about, but I won't name them out of respect. But yeah, it's a cool thing because my wife feels very safe, and I stay in shape. And it's at 70, coming up to 72 in 3 months, I love the thought of being underestimated. I mean, I said I love teaching people to replicate excellence, but I love that thought of being underestimated. If some guy thinks he's going to bully this old guy, it would be so freaking funny. So there you have it, young woman. Britain's
Yes, I love
natural
it.
astronaut.
Love it. I actually love what you just said about being underestimated. I wonder, is that a theme you might feel has been in your life that
Absolutely.
motivated you, or is that a more recent?
No, that's all my life. It is. I don't know how much your listeners or you guys are familiar with the Enneagram system of personality, where personality is divided into only 9 types. There's 9 types and a few subtypes, and every single person in the world is one of these 9 types. It never changes. It's stabilized when you're about 25. It comes from the Sufis in Iran, Persia. Nobody knows the origin, but Gurdjieff, the psychiatrist, thought it was so powerful he would only teach it to certain people. And it's a perfect tool for counseling because the Enneagram, when you find your type and recognize yourself, it's not what you want to be, it's what you are, then it does something predictive, which is interesting. It explains what happens to you when you're under stress and what happens to you when you're in a position of power and doing really well, and what you can expect to happen, and how to recognize the warning signs when you're under stress, and what steps you can take. And I highly recommend to your listeners and viewers a book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram, and that's ENNEAGRAM, 9-pointed star, by Rizzo, RISO, and Hudson, and or anything written by Helen Palmer or Beatrice Chestnut, who came to Toronto to teach for the Toronto Enneagram group. And I got into this years ago, and the numbers of personalities are not evenly divided. And you'll notice, Dana, this is a circumlocutory way of answering your question, but it will answer it. So there's a lot of number 9, Enneagram type 9. They're the peacemakers, Chris Thompson. They blend with anybody. Everybody likes them. They're great listeners. One of the weaknesses, they tell long Ken Sweatman stories that go on forever before they get to the point. I remember saying to Chris once, "Before we begin the second 15 minutes of this, is there going to be any point at the end?" So, but they're great for blending. But they relate to every number. Then you have the 4s. The 4s they love purple and black, and they're the artists, and they're tragically romantic, and nobody understands the depth of their feelings. And classic 4s are Edgar Allan Poe and Alanis Morissette and Marilyn Manson. But Enneagram type 8, which is what I am, is the smallest number of the Enneagram. There aren't many of us. A lot of people think they're 8s, but they're not. And I know real 8s when I meet them. We immediately connect with respect, even if we don't like each other. And the 8s, at our best, we're the white knights. We're the ones who rescue the damsels in distress and the puppies and the kittens and go into the burning buildings to drag people out. But at our worst, we're the mass murderers. We're the guys who go crazy with machine guns in shopping malls and take everybody out, which is not a good thing. So when things are going badly for us, we move to the worst traits of type 5. It's worth looking into. And type 5, we become solitary, want to be left alone, don't want to be bothered, lose touch with our feelings. And at our best, we go to the best of 2, the helper. And that's where I function most of the time. 6 degrees of disintegration, 6 degrees of integration, whatever, however people number it, and 6 degrees of normal. Most of the time we should be normal or integrated. But when I was less integrated about 20 years ago, I went through, I've done a lot of self-work. And I tell all my students, do the self work, do the work, find your own shit and get rid of it. Because the more we are an empty vessel, the more we're transparent, the more what we seem to be is what we are, the better we're able to help other people. And when I was a therapist for 7 years in the beaches in Toronto, a lot of the people I gave treatments to were either trainers or hypnotists, like, because people didn't want to do the self work. But it's crucial. We have to look into the abyss and look into the darkness of our own shadow and see that we're not the wonderful people we think we are. And we have to deal with that. And we're selfish and egotistical and all of these things. Well, I was way less integrated 20, 25 years ago. And my wife was part of the Enneagram conference in Toronto. So please, when you hear this, don't get mad at me. It's a long time ago. I was a much younger man. And this was at Ryerson University in Toronto. And I went to pick her up. And so I parked and she was teaching there, helping. She wasn't teaching, helping all day with these Enneagram greats. And one of the people who's a resource, woman, says to me, "Are you here to pick someone up?" "Yeah, my wife Heather." "Oh yeah, she's really nice. She's an Enneagram 6. I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you know your number, young man?" I said, "Yes, I'm an 8. She looks at me and says, "I don't think so." I said, "Do I have to break your legs to prove it?" She said, "You're an 8. It was just came out before I could rein it in. But it's really interesting. So it's a great system of personality. And with it, I determined that with me, Donna, in answer to your question, I was a bullied kid, severely bullied. I was a small kid. And I went through in my mind and I could figure out like something like 30 times I'd been really badly bullied and beaten up and choked and like horrendous stuff. And I had no defense to it. And the worst, of course, was the teacher who verbally bullied me and just terrified me. And at Earl Beatty Public School. And we lived right across the road from it. So my bedroom window, if I looked out my bedroom window, if I was sick with mumps or the flu or chicken pox or measles, and I had all of them, and German measles, rubella, if I was homesick, if I looked out my bedroom window, I could see my teacher teaching in that class. I never seemed to get away from him. And I can remember him dominating and scaring me so much. He told my parents, "I don't like bright kids. I like kids who do what they're told." It's like, oh, just repressive. My creativity, everything was stifled. And I can actually remember saying to myself, one day, I'm going to get smart enough and tough enough that no one's going to do this to me again. Mm-hmm. And it happened. Mm-hmm. Just put my mind to getting better, getting stronger, and learning skill sets and developing my brain. And so I think that's how it all happened. It came out of the dark. Now some people are crushed by that kind of thing. And I understand it's not the same for everyone. But for me, it gave me resolve. It gave me backbone. And especially because it's interesting. I'll tell you something deeply personal here. I had a meeting with Chris and our head of coaching, Timothy, online the other day. And I was going through a time I had a bad, virus and stuff. And I said, "Look, guys," they're saying, "Oh, like, look after yourself. Like, dude, look after your personal ecology. You'll be okay." And I said, "I just don't want to let you down." And I started to tear up a bit. And they're smart guys and they calibrated this. And they said, "Where did you just go when you said that?" And I said, "That's very interesting." It was my father. And I can remember being bullied by a kid outside our apartment building. My dad came out and I thought my dad's going to beat him up and rescue me. This big, bad kid, bigger than me. And my dad told me off and brought me in. And I remember saying, "You let me down. You let me down." And with the teacher, I was yanked out of his class. They pulled me out, put me in a different class with a great teacher, Frank Rowe. And I thought my dad was going to come in and clean house and slam this guy around. So it didn't happen. And I remember thinking, he let me down. He let me down. Isn't that something? So I said to Chris and Timothy, I'm older than you guys. I'm not your dad. But that old programming was still there, the fear of letting someone down.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
I hope it wasn't oversharing.
No. It's just that it's amazing how much everything really comes to, that time, we're still, as much as we have the tools, you know what I mean? You still have to keep working at it. So
that's it. It never ends this side of eternity, whatever you believe that is. The self-work never ends. And
that's right.
Yeah, it really is. And, I said how far back this stuff goes and why it's so important. When I gave the keynote at Hypnosis Live in 2018, I believe it was 2018, 2019. It was 2019. It was a blessing because I got to address, 600, 1,000 of my peers, great trainers. And the keynote I designed it so it was set up as a series of multiple embedded loops all inside each other.
Of
And
course you did.
It's
but
on YouTube. It's amazing. We'll link it.
no, thanks. But it's interesting because a huge part of my life, I've really kept my link with England, with Britain in general, but England in particular. And being back about 10 times, I no longer go to the UK Hypnosis Convention because people know me now. I mean, thanks to Chris, we have the name. People typically have heard of us. And it costs a lot to go over. It costs a lot to stay there, and it's like we're online so much. It doesn't really add anything. Although we'll do stuff remotely for them and help. Like I'm doing the Irish Hypnosis Convention on Zoom. So I'm just not traveling anymore. I've had enough of it. I travel to a cabin up north, stay for 85 nights, and come back. But I've got an iPad and we have Wi-Fi up there, so I'm okay. But back in Britain, we emigrated to Canada in 1957. Came by ship, and we were stuck in horrendous winds from a hurricane in the North Atlantic at sea for 3 days. And it was a week to get across. And my mom came over with me and my sister, older than me, and we were seriously sick for day and day on end and just terrifying. And got to Canada, settled into this new place. But the key event happened in 1957 in April 29th. People say, well, you know the date? Well, I do because it was my birthday. It was my fourth birthday. So I guess you don't remember much of your life in England. I said, Failsworth 3270 was our phone number at 34 Welbeck Avenue. So I remember things I hear to an insane degree. So I hear a piece of music once, and if I like it, it's in my head forever. So in the kitchen 10 years ago, music was playing. I said, I was homesick in grade 6. I was 10. I had the flu. That was playing. That was on the TV. It was a movie called The Pied Piper. Had said, no way. And at the end, he said, and that was from a childhood film. The Pied Piper. Just go, why do I even question you? So it's only things I hear. I'm very auditory. So that birthday, April 29, 1957, I had a birthday party, my first I remember anyway. And we went to my aunt's place by bus, Manchester bus, Chatterton bus, on the top deck of the double-decker bus. So me and my mom and dad, my sister, who was 11, 7 years older than me, and went to Aunt Sheila's house, and they had a cake for me, and we all drank tea, because you're English. Anyway, Aunt Sheila had this party, birthday cake, an expensive treat, a box of Black Magic chocolates, we didn't have much money. Somebody brought those. And I remember someone gave me a present, and it was toy soldiers, but we didn't have money, and they were cut out of cardboard, like printed. And I thought they were wonderful. But the best present of all was somebody gave me a teddy bear. It must have been mom and dad. And I called him Teddy right away. And I remember sitting with this bear on my lap. I'd never had one. I told him I loved him. I was kissing this bear and drinking tea, eating birthday cake. But all things come to an end, and it was time to leave and go home. So we went back out, and it was raining. We had umbrellas and sweaters and all that stuff, and bundled on the bus home on the top deck again. And we got off the bus, started walking up the road to our house on Welbeck Avenue. And I realized I'd left my bear on the bus. And I can remember being grief-stricken and terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. I felt like I'd lost part of myself, which will make sense in a minute. And my dad, I was crying my eyes out. My dad made the inquiries at Manchester Bus Company. Nothing, nobody found it. Nobody knew. And you know what? That childhood ego state went buried inside me and did not become executive again because it was afraid, terrified, and sad. And it was in the bomb shelter. We got the main floor. We integrate with the world. We got the basement where the ego states, the sub-personalities come out every now and then. We got the bomb shelter where the wounded by and invaded by fear, anger, sadness, trauma are. And I didn't even know it was there. And I buried that. And I buried a lot of my own heart. And I became a pretty nasty person. I didn't really give a shit about other people. I really didn't. I was selfish and filled with pride and arrogance. And then my wife knew my whole story. I still call her my first wife just to keep her on her toes. She's sharp as a tack, as Jennifer knows. And her birthday is Christmas Day. So Christmas is a huge deal in this house, which surprises my Jewish friends. They assume I'm Jewish. Mandel's a Jewish name. But, I can give you some pretty good Hebrew just to keep in touch with the, the roots I think I have. But Christmas Day is a big deal in this house. And so I give her a birthday present, Christmas present. And it's like, the movie A Christmas Story with Ralphie and the BB gun? That was filmed a 5-minute walk from my house. All the
Oh, wow.
scenes indoors in Indiana were all done in Toronto. Every indoor scene it was done in a studio, not inside the house. The leg lamp, everything. And that film I loved. And Ralphie at the end, you get what you wanted? Yeah, I guess so. And his dad says, I think there's another one. What? He looks, and it's his BB gun that he's wanted, the Red Ryder 300 shot BB gun with a compass in the stock. And Heather did the same thing on me. Presents are all opened. And she said, I think there's another one. What? And she says, something behind the furniture there. And I looked. I said, bring this thing out. And I said to Mike from Santa Claus, I ripped this thing open. It was a teddy bear. I'm going to go get him. Okay. He's wearing his Charlie Brown Christmas pajamas right now. We put them on him every year. So anyway, and his sweater normally says Teddy on it. So I open it. I see this bear. And that 4-year-old ego state becomes executive for the first time in more than 30 years. And I hugged this bear, and I was racked with sobbing. I couldn't get my breath, just wailing minutes. And guess what? That ego state healed. And now, I said it, Hypnothoughts Live, I was 66 or something at the time. I said, as a 66-year-old man, I'm proud to tell you that bear sleeps in my bed with me every single night. When I go to bed at night, hug the bear, that childhood ego state that still believes the world's a magical place and it's full of wonder, it becomes executive. And I go into a sleepy, dream-filled place and I sleep really, really well. Got to do the self-work, whatever it is. And that changed everything for me, that moment.
Yeah. Beautiful. Very touching.
No, not yet. You can't yet. You have to sit here.
Very touching. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's wow. And that brings us to our next segment, which is our silly subconscious question. So, Mr. Mike Mandel, if you were to be put into a witness protection program and you had to start over from scratch, what profession would you do? Because, of course, you couldn't allude to your previous life.
Right. I'd probably be a librarian because I'm a love of books. To have access to a library, I've got a huge number of books here, but a library full would be great. I'd like to do that. Or, no, I think that would be it. And then I could stay in the background and sort of hidden and wear glasses and go, what? And people looking at books and things.
And you could say, shh, all the time.
Either that or I manufacture teddy bears for a living. I'd have to learn how. I don't have the skills.
And just in keeping with our podcast name, even though Mike has journeyed us everywhere throughout the beyond, we will ask him the question. What is something that people may not know about you beyond hypnosis?
That's a very good question. Maybe the fact that I'm a backgammon fanatic. Michael C. Anthony taught me to play backgammon years ago, and he used to kick the crap out of me all the time. We played for money. I mean, it's $35 on one roll of the dice in one game, and he won most of the time, and he was infuriated. He moved to Florida, and I decided, okay, I'm going to put my mind on this. I read some books, got a bit better, read some books, got a bit better. And then I hired Mark Olson, who's a backgammon grandmaster in Denmark. I think he's living in Portugal now, online. And he fixed the holes in my game. And I think he was rated number 6 in the world or something at that time. And then I came back and started destroying everybody. And Mike would get so mad at me. He used to come out to my cabin once a year from Florida. We'd hang out, drink some red wine, have a laugh. We used to play backgammon, but he stopped the backgammon. And I started annoying him because I started claiming to be the best backgammon player in the world. And it would really push buttons. And then he said, stop saying that. So one day I said, it was just the best. I said, I know I used to say that I think I'm the best backgammon player in the world. But I said, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to say it anymore. He said, good. I said, I think I might be the greatest backgammon player who's ever lived. We played one game. I talked to him. He would not play me. He just would not. And we played one game, and he was so thoroughly destroyed. He has never sufficiently recovered from it. I don't think he's played a game since. He's not played with anyone. I mean, he won't play. Anytime he said, I'm not playing. He said, I cannot. I'm just not playing. He said, doesn't need the blood pressure. I said, $100, one game. No, it will not. And I love the guy like a brother. He's been the most, between him, Chris Thompson, Timothy September, I got the three best friends in the world. And the four of us just connect, and we go to Chris's amazing, incredible $1 million cottage with 3 fireplaces, which is nuts, and hang out. But that's it. I guess my obsession with backgammon and my new obsession with piano. So I'm just pressing on with that as well. I had a breakthrough. I can play the Downton Abbey theme now. So I'm very happy with that.
Well, this has been an incredible hour with you, Mike. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
just inspiring us and being the
My
reason
absolute
that
pleasure.
Dan and I have met and forged a great relationship, all
Yes.
because of you. So,
Yes.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
yeah.
We met in the practice rooms. And with that, what do we always say, Jen?
Peace out.
Peace out.
Fantastic. I'll say thanks again and good night.